Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I'm the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So today I want to talk about an intriguing video that came across my profile. I think it was yesterday when I saw it for the first time, and I was just really intrigued. You know, uh, Companies, people, everybody's been talking about, the possibilities behind artificial intelligence. And, my stance on artificial intelligence is that it can make, the world a lot easier, but it could also bring some really devastating changes to humanity and society because I'm seeing with so many things that AI can do nowadays, it gets to the point where okay, what's the necessity for humans? Sometimes that's how I see it. I mean, it's almost like if you remember, if any of you have seen the movie The Terminator, or I saw Terminator 1, Terminator 2. By the time 3 came around, I didn't think I didn't think much of Terminator 3. But the point here is, what does the future look like with just the AI technologies that we have right now? And can you imagine as technology continues to advance, just where will this be in 10 years from now? I mean, just from the generation I grew up in where pagers came along, then everybody had a cell phone and it was just a basic cell phone. But then, I almost look at cell phones today and I'll say that cell phones, I don't even really look at them as phones. They're like pocket-sized computers, right? And then you look at what the early cell phones look like and then where we are now. Then think about that in terms of AI. With the capacity, the ability of AI today, what does that mean 10, 20, 30 years from now? I mean, I hate to look at the worst manifestations of AI, but some of the things that we've seen have been pretty impressive. But just, it's one of those things where it makes you wonder, this can be used for the good of humanity, or it could probably make some really detrimental changes to humanity. So why am I talking about AI today? It's because this video that I saw yesterday or the day before, is circulating around in Brazilian social networks, and it's pretty amazing with the images that are depicted. So today's video is called AI generated video depicts slavery era images in Brazil with a level of realism that has sparked strong reactions and deep emotions. You almost have to wonder, like, okay, we've seen novellas, or what Brazilians call soap operas, they call them novellas, and we've seen movies and television series that were set in the slavery era. And so it's not like we haven't seen this, but what I say is that it is pretty amazing. If this is all AI generated, it's pretty realistic looking. I'm going to get into those videos in a minute, but for now, before I do, definitely like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, click on the notification bell, and drop a comment after you watch these videos, and just tell me what your first thoughts come to mind as you watch these videos. With that said, I'm gonna show you these videos as we go, and then I'm gonna do a quick overview of slavery in Brazil. I've always said, the racial situation and the history of slavery, history of Black Brazilians, should be something that's studied, because there were, by some estimates, more than 10 to 12 times more Africans that were shipped to Brazil than to what became the United States. From some sources that I've seen, slavery looked like it was more brutal in Brazil. So there were these similarities, and then there were these differences when you make comparative analysis between the slavery era in Brazil and the United States. Obviously, Brazil entered the slavery era before the U.S., and it lasted longer. Slavery continued for another 25 years after it was abolished in slavery. So, a lot of material that it's just like necessary reading. These are things that we should all know, because it just makes you wonder how things were, how it led to how one society is and how another society is. There's a lot that we can learn from that. Anyway, let me go ahead and get into the video, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the slavery era in Brazil. So let's do this. So this video, it comes from a Instagram channel called Pov Histórico, right? And The images are, like I said, they're very realistic looking images. It's really quite amazing because the images that you see in the video, they look somewhat like some of the slave era movies, miniseries, and novellas that we've seen on television and in film. And if this was all, AI generated, you got to say it is absolutely stunning. Not to say it's stunning to see people in chains. What I'm saying is it's stunning to see the capacity of what AI can do. So the videos were posted and it asked the question, how would you react if you woke up today as a slave? Or there's two captions on two of the videos. One of them says you woke up as an enslaved African aboard a slave ship in 1720. That's what you see in this caption here. The other one says you woke up as an enslaved African in Brazil in 1830. A profile on the social network known as Pov Histórico has used artificial intelligence to create videos that simulate what it would be like to wake up during the period of slavery in Brazil. Here's some other images. This is from the second video, and it's supposed to be taking place in 1830. These fictional scenes depict the daily lives of enslaved people with a level of realism that has sparked strong reactions and deep emotions. So I just want you to check out these videos before I get into an overview. This is by no means am I going to try to summarize everything that happened, during the 300 years plus of slavery that happened in Brazil. But I am going to sum it up a little bit. I'm going to go through this article real quick and just talk about, slavery era in Brazil. Just curious to know, as you watch the scenes from these videos, what comes to your mind? Like I said, the images are not new, but I am totally stunned. I'm amazed at what AI can create. So, definitely want to get a conversation started on these videos. What are you thinking right now as you watch these videos? Drop a comment in the comment section. One of the best parts of having a YouTube channel is just seeing how people think. What was your reaction when you saw the videos? And go from there, because I can't possibly respond to all of the comments that come in, but I'm quite sure this can definitely lead to a provoking debate or conversation on the slavery era in Brazil. So anyway, want to get into the article, which I'm calling Slavery in Brazil, History, Impact, and Legacy. Also want to tell you that all of the images, whether they're paintings or real pictures, these are all images depicting slavery, specifically in Brazil. Slavery in Brazil was a brutal system that lasted for over 300 years, leading to the forced enslavement of millions of indigenous people and Africans. The transatlantic slave trade brought nearly 4.8 million Africans to Brazil, making it the country with the highest number of enslaved individuals in the Americas. Although slavery was officially abolished in 1888 with the Golden Law, its effects are still deeply felt in Brazilian society today, in the vast, racial inequalities. The origins of slavery in Brazil can date back to the 1530s, when the Portuguese colonizers were settling in the region. Initially, their primary economic activity was the extraction of what's called Brazil wood, relying on indigenous labor through a barter system. Now, Brazil wood, or what they call Pão Brasil in Portuguese, is where the name of the country Brazil comes from Pão de Brasil, or Brazil wood in English. However, as the demand for agricultural production, particularly sugarcane, increased, the Portuguese sought a more permanent labor force. By 1534, the establishment of hereditary captaincies encouraged large-scale sugar production, requiring a vast workforce. Viewing manual labor as degrading, the Portuguese began enslaving indigenous peoples to work in the fields. This marked the beginning of Brazil's long history of forced labor. For much of the 16th and early 17th century, indigenous people were the primary enslaved workforce in Brazil. However, this system faced several challenges. Many indigenous communities resisted forced labor, viewing agriculture as a role traditionally assigned to women in their culture. Additionally, Jesuit missionaries opposed the enslavement of indigenous groups, advocating for their conversion to Christianity instead. Portuguese colonists, however, continued to exploit indigenous labor despite legal restrictions. In regions where African slaves were scarce, such as the states of Sao Paulo, Paraná, and Maranhão, indigenous enslavement remained widespread. Another challenge was the high mortality rate among indigenous populations due to European diseases, conflicts, and resistance movements. By the late 16th century, the shift toward African slavery became more pronounced. From the mid-16th century onward, the Portuguese expanded their involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, bringing enslaved Africans to Brazil. Unlike indigenous slavery, the African slave trade provided a large, stable labor force that fueled Brazil's booming sugar economy. The harsh working conditions, particularly in sugar plantations, led to extreme physical exhaustion, injuries, and brutal punishments. Enslaved Africans endured grueling 20-hour workdays in sugar mills where accidents, burns, and amputations were common. While some worked in agriculture, others were domestic servants or laborers in urban areas. African slaves were subjected to severe punishments, including whippings, chaining, and torture to instill fear and to prevent rebellion. Many were forced to wear iron masks to prevent them from eating sugarcane or from committing suicide by ingesting dirt. Despite extreme oppression, enslaved people in Brazil actively resisted their captors. Acts of defiance ranged from work slowdowns and sabotage to outright rebellion. Many escaped plantations and formed what's called quilombos. They were autonomous communities of fugitive slaves. One of the most famous was called Quilombo dos Palmares, led by Zumbi dos Palmares, which became a powerful symbol of resistance. Zumbi is a name that has come up consistently, on the blog as well as in the YouTube channel. You can find a lot of information online about Zumbi dos Palmares. Today, Zumbi is considered perhaps the greatest Black leader in the history of the country. He was the Portuguese captured him, and he was killed. Some reports say that his head was chopped and put on display to discourage other fugitive slaves from disobedience or escaping from slave plantations. Today, some almost 400 years later, Zumbi remains a strong symbol of resistance for Black Brazilians. Other forms of resistance included legal battles where abolitionist lawyers defended enslaved individuals in court and organized revolts where enslaved people fought for their freedom. The growing resistance played a crucial role in destabilizing the institution of slavery. Brazil was the last country in the Americas to abolish slavery, officially ending it with the signing of the Golden Law on May 13, 1888. The abolition movement gained momentum in the 19th century, particularly after the end of the Paraguayan War in the 1870s. Activists, journalists, and lawyers pushed for emancipation, while many citizens provided shelter for fugitive slaves. Despite the legal end of slavery, newly freed Black Brazilians faced immense challenges. They were left without land, resources, or economic opportunities, forcing many into poverty and social exclusion. The long history of slavery left deep racial and economic disparities that persist in Brazil today, shaping issues of systemic racism, discrimination, and social inequality. The legacy of slavery in Brazil remains evident in modern society. Structural racism, economic inequality, and social discrimination continue to affect Afro-Brazilian communities, although significant progress has been made, such as affirmative action policies and cultural recognition of Afro-Brazilian heritage. Many challenges remain in achieving full racial equality. Understanding Brazil's history of slavery is essential to addressing its lasting effects and working towards a more just society. By recognizing the resilience and contributions of Afro-Brazilians, we can help foster a more inclusive and equitable future. Slavery in Brazil was a deeply ingrained system that left a lasting impact on the nation's history and culture. From the early enslavement of indigenous people to the transatlantic slave trade that brought millions of Africans to Brazil, forced labor shaped the country for over 3 centuries. While legal abolition marked a crucial turning point, the struggle for racial justice continues today. By acknowledging this history and addressing social inequalities, Brazil can move forward towards a more equitable future for all. So anyway, what did you think about this breakdown about slavery? I mean, there's been tons, just probably hundreds of books written about the slavery era in Brazil. So this was by no means an extensive deep dive into the slavery era in Brazil, but really kind of like an introduction in some ways. I've talked about slavery on the blog as well as the YouTube channel in numerous posts and videos. But I really wanted to just highlight this video that was created out of AI. It's just, it kind of blew my mind, the realism in these videos. Anyway, gonna wrap up this video here real quick. Wanted to know, what did you all think about the video? What did you think about the breakdown about slavery and the slavery period in Brazil's history? Definitely drop a comment in the comment section. Would love to know what you guys thought about the video. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, click on the notification bell so that you'll know when I put up new videos. With that said, I'm going to end this video here and request that you all come back. Check out the next video I post here on Black Brazil Today.